Perfect.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
Absolutely.
Fabulous.
It's wonderful.
This is perfect. What's going on? Supposedly we are live.
Yeah, I think we're live right now.
So we're coming at you.
Yeah, we're coming at you hot.
With Justin Harris, who is our after show June artist resident. Resident artist. I can never remember how I say that.
I feel like we can't even serve you justice in terms of introducing you because you just do so much.
Yeah.
So if you don't mind, the floor is yours.
Hey everyone, I'm Justin. I'm a creative. I document, I track everything in my life using cameras, biometric sensors, wearables, and tech. I'm a nerd. And yeah, I make abstract art and help other people build creative brands, and that's a little bit of what I do.
Hell yeah, sweet, cool. I think like there's a whole list of things that we wanted to ask you, but basically we kind of boiled it down to like a couple of major points with a whole bunch of like sub points that we sort of wanted to lead into, but like one of
I think
the most important things that I think we should talk about is why we're here.
Yeah.
And that is this awesome conference that you are hosting and that you're probably the first to, or you are the first to do.
Yeah.
So that's dope.
Yeah. The Worldwide Creators Conference.
Hell yeah.
It's crazy because 11 weeks ago, the world had not shut down, at least here in America. And during this time, the summer, there's tons of conferences that go on, and none that's happening right now. Mm-hmm. So I thought, what would be a great way to bring back that human connection that traditionally happens? And I love meeting people. I love being able to connect with people, and I thought the best way to do that would be to bring together everyone through a creators conference, because we're all creators, whether we use that label or not. We all make art, we all do stuff, whether it's a dream or vision or your basic work that you do, you're always creating something. So
yeah. Well, to tie that too, just to kind of go back to you, because there's so much of the comprehensive like through lines of who you are as an artist, as an abstract artist, as a person interested in tech. Like all of your elements are all really interconnected, which I super connect with as somebody who does a lot of things that are seemingly super disparate, right? But like they're not at all, because you've done a really good job of like catalyzing these things as one being, which is you, as one person, right?
Yeah.
So like I wrote down on my bullet point underneath, tell us about yourself, to go to peer behind the curtain. I wrote down just a bullet point that says discipline, because we talked last week through Patreon. We had an audio chat, and I am just constantly floored by not only who you are and the through lines of who you are, but like what you've talked about is like, I choose to do this thing and then I do it, which is already hard enough, but I choose to do this thing and I do it, and I do it for a long time in a sustained practice, which is like so awesome. So, one of the last bullet points you just mentioned was, helping other people be creative. And this feels so much like, not the final form, but like the magnum opus, the current magnum opus of that.
Yeah, it like becomes full circle when you're able to not only just live that kind of creative life, but then when you're able to be in a community that has similar values and helps create a culture that's similar to the one that we live. It's super magical.
Yeah, it is magical. That's really cool.
No, I think it's also like, for me at least, I don't know if I speak for myself here, but like in this time of a lot of current change, but also sort of heading into long-term change, like one of the things that I've missed the most is talking to other artists. Like, even though like I can talk to them online through like Instagram and Twitter, it's not the same as like actually being able to work with them or like conference with them in like an online setting or like in an actual working environment, like that type of thing. And like going back to the conference conversation, like that is really exciting to me. Just, a new horizon, pitching a new idea that other people can go through with in the future. Not to say that other people should copy you, but I think it's a really promising idea.
Yeah, right.
Speaking of copying,
Oh
I
no.
woke up yesterday and the largest video conference, VidCon, introduced an online format that's starting on the same day as the conference.
Yeah.
Wild.
But I took a look at their lineup. They've only got like two workshops that are happening.
Pitch posh.
That actually overlap with a little bit of what we're doing.
Interesting.
Key related. And,
Cool.
But yeah, I thought that was interesting. That they're like, "Oh, we're going digital." And I'm like, "Wait, I've been waiting at you all for the past 2 weeks, and now you decided to go digital."
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, that's something interesting too. If I can talk about, I guess, two things. One is copying, which is, I know as somebody I've been a community leader as well, and like, actually the most like imitation is the finest form of flattery, right? Like, if I create a format and I make a worldwide creators conference, and I cut my teeth on that, everybody that attends or leads along with me should feel inclined to take that information and go off and do their own thing, right? Like copying is actually a beautiful thing when it comes to community leadership.
It makes me think how, especially as artists, like you want to steal someone's work and improve it and make it better.
Exactly. Yeah. I think I mentioned this in our audio chat, but like, I think about constantly that I had this professor, this printmaking professor, which is inherently sort of a repetitious art form, right? Who basically was like, go ahead, try and copy a famous artist. You'll never do it, because what you'll do, you'll think you're imperfect. You'll think you're copying imperfectly, but instead you're making your version, and like, that's fine. Go ahead and copy for the rest of your life, But the other thing, if I could say too, just about one thing that you mentioned is being really overt about like what community art, whether it's remote, whether it's in person, what community art looks like, and the necessity for realizing that that is inherently an intersectional conversation. That it's like, it's like you make an art conference, and it could be about tech, it could be about video, it could be about whatever specific thing, but because independent of what's going on in our country right now, that is inherently an intersectional conversation. It's inherently an intersectional space. So to highlight that as such is so important. And that's something you've done, right? I mean, that's something I've seen, at least in your descriptions.
Yeah. When you tie, everything that's going on, and then you look at, because art's very subjective.
Right.
A lot of people wouldn't classify themselves as artists, but I like to classify everyone as an artist or a creator of some sort.
Yeah.
And when you look at it from that perspective, I think that's what makes the Creators Conference so special. Because no matter who you are, like the biggest thing when I started YouTube, a lot of people would focus on subscriber count rather than like the behind the scenes process of the art or why they were creating. And then when it became more business-like, it was like a lot of young creators these days focus on followers now.
Right.
It's like the new metric on TikTok, and then I guess depending on what your goals and motives are, it's like whether you want to focus on numbers or not. How do you build and create art that's meaningful, whether you have numbers or not, or whether you're hitting your numbers or not? Because everyone starts out, you're not going to be hitting the numbers that you want and moving and taking the baby steps to get to where you want to go.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm super excited to be able to like help people at an early stage when they realize that you don't necessarily need 1 million subscribers to build $1 million business.
Yeah.
Or to make an impact on a single person. So.
I think that very surprisingly leads us into one of the first things I sort of wanted to talk about in this conversation, but and I think like we sort of touched on it a little bit in the last conversation that we had over Discord, but like the importance of networking on the internet, like that is something that like, okay, you need to shut up. That is something that like
Do not
I
just.
yeah, exactly. I like recently have like discovered that networking is like probably like looking back, it's probably been the most like important thing in terms of my career online. Um,
Mhm.
and I feel like not too many younger people on the internet are aware of how powerful something like that is. Like how much time and energy you really should be putting towards networking, making those connections, and making it known who you are in whatever community you're in. But I sort of wanted to have a bigger discussion about that with you because you, I think of all people, are probably a great example as to how powerful networking can be.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. Yeah, networking is super powerful. I think like our first speaker, Grace, on Saturday is all about networking and be talking a bit more about that. And when you're able to meet new people and share your work and understand what work they're building,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like networking and the collaboration space or digital media, we always call it collabing or collaborating.
Mm-hmm.
But like in order to collab, you have to network, and I
Right.
think that's the first step. So um, realizing that it's really all about communicating and being able. I think another way we call this like sliding in DMs.
Sure. Yeah.
I feel like we all have different terms in like the industry, but
Yeah.
all of this is just basically networking.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So whether you're messaging people and telling everyone that you know about the work that you're creating and
Mm-hmm.
actively engaging on whatever platform you're on. Like for example, the past month I started doing this conference. Everyone's been tagging me, and I had never seen the mention section before on Instagram. Where anytime you're tagged in a story, it tells you. I'm like,
Yeah.
wait, this is you. So being able to like look at metrics that show how you are communicating with others, like how many messages did you send this week, rather than like how many followers you got, how many mentions did you get.
Yeah.
I guess like looking at the metrics that matter versus the ones that may or may not matter. So.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. Yeah, yeah. I've never been somebody who I've never really engaged too much with metrics at all because I've just been like the other like somewhere else in the ether, I guess. Um, but like it's funny to think about if I've engaged with it. It's in my thought process. It's there are people that do engage with metrics. There are people that don't engage with metrics, and it's like you either are there and you're sad or you're not there and you're weird, right? It's like which is obviously a diluted way to say it, but like I think that that's really important. Like I've never been somebody who wears like a biometric recording device. I've never felt the need. But it's really interesting to think about that as a positive tool, as a tool for empowerment, as a tool for motivation, and what you're saying, which is really really amazing to me as a newcomer, is to really cultivate exactly what kind of biometrics you're talking about, right? Because like that those numbers are biometrics. They're metrics on human connection.
Yeah, yeah. And the fun thing about it is like I'm not a numbers guy. I hate numbers. Like if you give me a set of data, I will go with my intuition over the numbers.
Yeah.
Almost 100% of the time. Like
Yeah.
it's very rare that I'll look at the numbers and be like, oh. And in some jobs and careers, like you just can't do that. But
Yeah.
I'm definitely more of an emotional and intuition type of person, which is sometimes funny because I'll look at this type of art that I'm creating or connections, and I'm like, oh well, sometimes stuff numbers just don't add up. But then you also have the other side where you can like sometimes manipulate data and numbers to make it seem better. But yeah, all of this is very very interesting.
I think like a strange question that I kind of have is like I don't know, like with all of the social media platforms we have, like what would you say is like has been the most promising for you in terms of like reaching out to people and like maintaining those connections?
Yeah, I'll start back in the early days. I missed my YouTube vlogs. I don't know if you all ever used YouTube Inbox like, before they made Google.
I don't. Oh wait, no. Yes, yep.
Yeah.
That was a lot of words that just came out of my mouth.
Yeah, YouTube Inbox was the very like that was how I did my networking in a way. I think like Twitter wasn't really a thing then. I mean, it was
Gotcha.
out, but no one really, like, at least in tech, didn't use it. So being able to understand that email is kind of like everyone has an email address, and it's where business happens. You can send someone a tweet, they may or may not read it, but if you send them an email, they'll definitely delete it or respond to it. And yeah, I'd say my most impactful tool right now has been Instagram. Just being able, it's in my opinion, after they copied Snapchat, they've been innovating every week. Like every other week, there's a new feature on Instagram.
Yeah.
Shipping really fast. Snap, they're building out more of a augmented reality platform that I think is going to be massive in the next 2 to 3 years. Whenever we hit the next phase of
Interesting.
tech.
Very interesting.
So I'm excited for that world. Like when we're living in an Apple Glass world or Snap Glass world, like,
Yeah.
I think that's going to be great. But for the time right now, like everyone's on phones. And, like how fast, I don't know if you all saw, but like how Instagram made the gift cards button and the donate button. Like as soon as all of this stuff happened with our world, within weeks, in a matter of days, the Instagram team made actionable widgets and stories that you could use to support your community.
Yeah.
And that that kind of innovation is great. So I was able to use that to get support from my community,
Right.
And to also connect and network with people, because it's a matter of just sharing the work that I'm doing and telling my story.
Interesting.
I mean, again, you've kind of wonderfully transitioned us into, one of the other things I kind of want to talk about is, like, I guess the $1 million question, which is like, being on the internet is great, but how do you support yourself? Like, that's always been like a huge question for me entering into the internet space, as I'm sure probably is for most people.
And the question that you're asked most notably at Thanksgivings.
Oh yeah, no, yeah. It's like, oh, that's a job. Do you get paid? But like, I guess the overarching question is like, with the Patreons of the world out there, and with like the YouTube memberships of the world out there, like, what do you see as being the next big thing, or what do you see as being currently the most promising thing? Like, how do you think, as a creator in this day and age, supporting yourself, like, what does that look like?
I'm gonna answer this in the future. The year's 2050, we all have universal basic income. Our basic needs are taken care of.
Yeah.
And support is most likely not in a monetary form. It's more in a human connection. Like, I love this, but it's not 2050 yet. And hearts don't equal cash or physical representation of any type of love. But in today's world, it's all about building a sustainable monthly recurring revenue.
Yeah.
If you can build that and not spend more than what you're bringing in yourself, that's the hardest part, though. And in the startup world, we call that the burn rate, and not to burn as much money as you don't, if you're not bringing in money, especially. And really teaching creators, I guess some of that lingo and practices, because I guess over like the last 5 years, I've been fortunate enough to work at startups that have failed, and then also startups that have succeeded, and to see a company just like go out of business and to be a part of it and it to be your baby in a way, is kind of sad, but then you learn a lot from it.
Sure.
And it's weird because some people love when it comes to art, it's tough to make it go out of business because it's your art. Like, you're not gonna stop doing your art. Right. So it's really about tying it in with the connections that you're making and figuring out where you can get the support somewhere versus have a company and someone's not buying the product. You can either change the company or the company. I guess you could pivot your art style, but then it goes back to art being subjective. Like you're most likely not going to want to change your art style. So I feel like I'm rambling, but
no, not at all.
yeah, going back to the original topic, like how do you sustain a living as a creator? It all starts with being able to build a community, and then once you have a community, to be able to sell something tangible or a membership. Those are like your two main options. If you're not selling a membership service, you're selling something physical. If you're not selling something physical, you're selling a monthly service that adds value to people's lives.
Yeah.
Newsletters are a big thing right now. Paid newsletters, where like getting an exclusive membership to my updates on what I'm an expert at.
Yeah.
And that's how it works. And it's much easier than getting 1 million subscribers, I promise you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It sounds like, because you're not the only person that I've spoken to in this field, in fields adjacent to my own, that has shared sentiment, wants that same 2050, and I think that your experience, it sounds like your experience, like you said, highlighting having worked for failed and succeeded startups, it really shows you that capital is not the end goal, right? So, and I think that like a lot of people in fields similar to yours are saying that right now. And I also think that I see as an outsider to somebody working in those spaces, I see a lot of people who like end up basically realizing, oh, capital's not the end goal, and then kind of just melting away and disappearing into their own life so that they can be a real human again, right? And it so resonates with me that rather than doing that, you're choosing the other route, which is that community is needed for realizing this other world we need to get to. You're not going to it's not just going to go from December 31st, 2049 to 2050 and everything's going to be all right. That's not how the world works. It's like, it's going to take, you chose that date because it's going to take 30 hard years of doing this work. And I guess my question, it kind of comes back to the conference, and the idea of copying is like, when you build community and, whether it's for revenue or not, whether it's, I want to train you how to do this, I want to show you how to do this, I want to give you my time, my goods, my resources, whatever. Mm-hmm. Even though we are existing in a space where the exchange is, I kind of need to eat right now. Yeah. There's also part of the exchange, part of the Easter egg or the back door of the exchange is, I also want to give you the currency of learning that this is actually way more important, and this is a tool you can access too, right? So like, being a community leader births more community leaders in the most successful version of community leadership. The most failed community version is, you need me and you can't do this on your own. That's a very failed version of community leadership. But the perpetuation of anybody can do the thing that I'm doing with the unique talents that you have. Please go out and do that. We all need to do that, right?
Yeah,
that was like almost a question, but more like a statement.
Yeah, I think that looking at the failed model and the model that works, like it all ties into teaching. And can you teach your practice and your uniqueness so someone else can go out and make it their own?
Yeah.
And a great model of community leadership and being able to put together a sustainable revenue.
Right.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think like one of the questions that's been floating around this office a lot is like, what is the next big platform too? Because like, there's a lot of promising platforms, but it's also all about how you approach it and how you are, I mean, as you said, unique in that space. And like, I've seen like quite a few Patreons that have been incredibly, like, not to use the word promising again, but like promising. Just like the things they offer, the way that it looks, like how it involves you as an artist and as a supporter and as a collaborator. And then I've also seen like, a bunch of other platforms trying to do the same thing. like kind of to go back to that question, like what do you think the next platform is?
The one that doesn't exist right now.
Yeah,
Fair enough.
Yeah, but like it's even crazy to think that like the internet's so young.
yeah,
Yeah.
Like it's, and even the tools that we use today are young.
yeah.
Because we've got, I think like TikTok's the latest sensation, and then before that, everyone was battling between Instagram and Snapchat.
Yeah.
While we had Vine, and we look at all these different platforms. It's definitely the one that we don't know of right now.
Yeah,
fair enough.
And we can't think of. I do like the way that I feel like the platform that's very popular for photographers. And do you ever use Visco?
Yeah.
I find their model interesting because like it's like a paid community in a way. But then you also mix that, and you've got Byte, like the new Vine.
Yeah, yeah.
Curious to see where that goes. I'd say that's like my most. I'd say that like that would be the answer to your question. Like I'm curious to see where the original creator of Vine takes this new baby, Byte.
I was actually going to ask you. I was going to ask you about Byte because my girlfriend added it as like as a beta user. She just heard about it, got onto it, and has been super interested in it. And me, sort of by extension, watching her, we've been really interested in the unique perspective that it offers. It's super community-based first. They have forums that they really promote users use, and the makers are also on it.
It's huge.
So it's like the conversation is like, what do you guys want next? Oh, we want this. Okay, we'll do it, you know? And one thing that I just absolutely loved, that kind of ties to your like biometric thing, is you can't see other people's follower count on Byte.
Oh, really?
It's amazing.
Interesting.
You know?
It's like not needed.
And like the go around is almost really like is extraordinarily exposing. There's a couple people like that'll be on there that are like, you know, in their bio will be like, I have 10,000 followers, and it's like, why'd you need to tell me that?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But yeah, I wondered how much you knew or how much you've interacted with
It's
Byte.
interesting, like how like TikTok and Byte are like at the same time incredibly similar, but also incredibly different. Like in that exact like it revolves around those metrics.
One's inclusionary and one's exclusive, and
I mean,
and exclusionary.
Yeah. No, I think that's kind of that though. It's like it's fascinating to see how two different platforms approach a very similar thing, and how they treat their community members so incredibly differently. And I feel like, you know, that'll also add to reattention from creators. I mean, you know, like I've made a few half-assed TikToks that have been purely jokes, but it's like, you know, nothing about it like makes me want to keep exploring it, because I'm not, you know, I'm gonna put this in really sad terms. I'm not a cute girl dancing in front of a camera and like getting hundreds of thousands of views. Like that's seemingly all TikTok is right now. Whereas like, you know, when I logged on to Byte, there was just like such a different influx of types of content, and like that's the type of thing that would make me want to explore on that app, because it doesn't feel defined yet. It feels very relaxed at the moment. This is probably going into a tangent, but
well, it's actually going into a tangent that I think is really interesting, and then that can, if it's okay, that can tie us back into what we were talking about, because I don't want to go
what is
so
this?
far
What are
into
we talking about?
so far out of orbit. But I don't remember what it was, but we were recently talking, I think it was maybe on our Let's Fix It, about like the like homogeny on YouTube that occurs, where like a lot of creators who don't wear their hats artists, they don't consider themselves artists, which can be used as a very good deflecting tool against shit comments and stuff, right? People who are creators and insecure in that, but are still making beautiful content, so many comments, so often people are like, you've changed, you're not making the thing you used to. I'm not, like, you can get it as a musician, right? that last album you made was so beautiful, and this one is different, and it's challenging my way of
Yeah.
thinking, and that's scary.
Like that's a bad thing.
And I'm
Yeah.
scared now, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, I think that, I don't know, I think that ties into like the homogeny of like talking about TikTok. You go on TikTok, it doesn't challenge you by being a community of diversity,
Yeah.
you know? And Byte can do that, or like, and now here's the big tie-in, like your conference is an interdisciplinary creators conference, which is what's so powerful. It's people from all types teaching and sharing all types of experiences and expertise and art styles. So,
Yeah.
again, not a question. I keep phrasing these like they're going to be questions, but
It's food for thought. Lots of food.
When I look at Byte, so like I haven't used it since they probably launched. I made like 3 or 4 bytes that week, and I forget the metric that they go off. There's like a unique metric they have, like a rebyte or something. I don't know what it is. They got something that's very unique to only them. I think it's like how many times people watch your byte.
loops. They do a loop thing.
Oh.
Yeah, they've got a few unique metrics that are like that replace the need to have a follower. It's like if you get this amount of metric, well, you know, I'll have to go look it up and we'll talk about it sometime. But I love how they flipped the sponsorship on its head.
Yes.
It's the sponsors creating ads, the users create ads in exchange for money, and that I think is way more genuine than
Fascinating.
You know, imagine if I could create a creators conference, it'd kind of be like the other way around, where it's like, hey, talk about the creators conference in a creative way.
Right.
You'll get a grant. Like,
yeah.
Well, we can do that for you if you want. We'll do that on Sunday.
Gladly.
You
know, that is fascinating though. I mean, like it's interesting to see how I mean, like in the same sentiment of like how creators choose choose to make their content on a platform. It's also interesting to see how platforms themselves decide to monetize themselves, and especially like for creators specifically. Like I don't know. I mean, a lot of YouTube, especially in like my time of being on YouTube, like it's been a lot of figuring out how to fend for myself, and a lot of gray area that I've sort of had to navigate and fly by the seat of my pants on. And like, you know, hearing what I'm hearing about Byte, like it sounds a lot more self-explanatory in terms of like, you know, this is what we want from you. This is what, you know, basically your bullet points are, and, you know, you'll get money in return. And it's like, I wish YouTube was like that in a lot of ways. But
I was so bummed when, I think it was in 2012, when they took away the partner program from everyone.
Yeah.
Like, because like for 4 years I got a check from YouTube. It wasn't like enough to live off of, but like, and then they're like, oh, you need, I don't know what the new metric is now, like 4,000, 40,000, some new number,
something like that. Yeah.
And it stripped my partner title away, and I was like, okay, I'm not taking YouTube serious anymore.
Yeah. It's interesting.
Well, it's like even now, like even having enough to be able to get that check, like it's still not much at all. And it's like it's definitely not enough to live off of. Maybe it's a couple $100 a month, maybe, but it's like, you know, at that point maybe it's buying you coffee or something like that. It's like you still need, for most creators, you probably still need sponsorships and finding other means of revenue. But yeah, no, I mean, I'd love to be a fly on the wall in terms of a lot of the conversations that go on with new platforms, and like talking about conversion and compensation, that type of thing. But
I wonder what compensation will look like if we ever get to a point where, you know, say we do have everything taken care of. What would compensation look like? Would followers then be a thing versus let me pay you money? But then I also think a lot of creators get that confused now, where they're like, oh, my art's not worth money, but it is.
And that's, I mean, I've experienced that a ton as somebody who's engaged in community art, community leadership in art as well. And to hear you open up 35 minutes ago with, you know, I believe everybody's a maker, is the first step to sanctify the space that you walk on around you, right?
Yeah.
If that's the attitude you're going with, it's so important, because you're right. Like, so many people don't think they're worth something, and that comes from education. It comes from our school systems. It comes from so many different faulty areas in our culture, right? There's so much lack of worth. Artists are not worthy here, and so whose job, if it's not the culture's job on high to give you your worth, it's each other's job, and that exactly comes back to community. The power, and I will say this until it's my last breath, that the power of community isn't just that we're all sharing the same space. It's that we're all enlightening each other. It's that we're all empowering each other, and because by sharing this space with you, like, this experience makes me feel worthy. Because we're all experiencing that lack of self-worth. We're all constantly barraged by that.
I mean, especially on the internet too, because it's just, it's so impersonal in so many ways.
Yeah.
And it's like being able to like actually reach out to living people, living organisms on the internet is like really refreshing.
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
I mean, that's been like one of the really revealing things about starting a Patreon and like building that Discord and like being able to actually have conversations with people is such a rewarding thing in so many ways. I mean, it makes your art form so much more tolerable.
Yeah, I feel like we talked a lot about this with the Discord chat, where it's okay to reach out to strangers and say, I like your work.
Yes.
I think I learned early on. There's two things I learned that I didn't fully grasp until I started, working. But one, like, there's this thing called a coffee chat where you can literally just ask anyone to meet for coffee, and they will either say yes, no, or not respond. And if they don't respond, keep emailing them until they say no or yes.
Yeah.
And if they don't respond, they didn't say no. So it is okay to keep asking.
Yeah.
It's not okay if they say no, and then you keep asking.
Right.
And that goes into law of averages and more numbers stuff, but like, if you keep asking someone, eventually they will say no.
Yeah, sure.
No.
Hopefully, yes.
Yes.
And then on top of that, like, I learned early on what a funnel was, but I didn't really understand it when I learned what it was, and how I think the founder of Patreon does a great talk on this. How the world is built on top of funnels, with lead generation or sales funnels, and how that applies to anything. And the example he gave is like, if you're going to find a doctor, you would probably go to Google or the phone book or whatever tool and find 50 doctors, and you'd probably call 20 of them, and 10 of them would answer, and 5 of them would say they have appointments, and you pick 2, and you've got your funnel for doctors. But you can apply that to your art. I love applying it to stories, like seeing 50 people watch my stories on this time at this time, and then by the 20th post, 10 people are watching them. What did those 10 people click throughout the last 50 stories?
Yes.
But to understand the art of a funnel, and whether it applies to stories, a project that you're selling, or whatever it is, like, those two things have made the biggest impact in building like my membership business. It's all like, I used to have a job where I would sell people TV service in like an entertainment store, and that was fun to do. So I learned these like basic sales theories and practices, and then applied them to like the internet and business stuff. And it's very, very different because it always changes based off like what's hot and like what the latest best practices and trends are. But those two things popped into my head. The whole thinking of how do we build a business that's sustainable and makes us money, because too bad revenue doesn't do it.
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
Well, I think we should start to wrap up a little bit. But, I think the last thing I just sort of wanted to leave off on is, this Worldwide Creator Conference. We will be part of it. What is the day?
Well, so actually, I want to like preamble that,
Okay,
because
let's
one
do
thing
it.
that's so interesting to me that I want to like keep in the conversation on interesting budding technologies, and then let that bleed into it, is
Okay.
right before we hit go live, we were just talking about what our what are we calling them? Our segment that we're gonna do, our talk, our talk for the conference, and you were talking about this program, this software that we're using as the intermediary, as
Yeah,
the
yeah, oh, yeah.
and how interesting that is. And so like one of the things that I think is going to happen with new technology is that everybody's going to start making new things that do one little extra cool thing, and we just start to copy off each other, right? So
Right.
you were talking about this one website that we're using, and just the fascinating nature of how we're going to be doing this live stream. And for anybody that doesn't know, this is why it ties in.
Yep.
For anybody that doesn't know, we'll be doing our segment at 3 p.m. EST or 12 noon PST on Sunday, the
Sunday.
21st.
Cool. Do
well-
days even really matter at this point?
Well,
It's
they
the
do right now.
21st.
But it'll be like our normal Let's Talk, which we actually will be doing the day before with our patrons and the public. But the special thing about this, the nature of this website that we're using is that we can't do on our normal Let's Talk live stream,
Yeah.
is that we can be inviting up the people whose art we're looking at to talk with us.
Yep.
And
Face to face.
and so like things like that are such a revolutionizing
Yeah.
way to use the internet.
Yeah. We might not be able to go back to our normal.
We're gonna hold a
Yeah,
conference every week.
Yeah, I'm excited to see, what the artists and what you all think, and also the other speakers.
Yeah.
The virtual networking that's going to be at this conference is the closest you can get to an in-person, like randomly meeting someone.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It's like video one-on-one speed networking with all the conference attendees that log on that day.
Yeah.
In addition to how you're describing people show up. So.
You were telling us on our audio chat, which I'll also plug, that once a month we invite a resident artist to join us for the month on our Discord, and we talk about things that they're doing through the after show. And one of the things that we do with them is with our office hours patrons, we have an audio chat on the second Wednesday of each month to talk about what they're doing, to talk about their art form, to talk about the way that they interact with community leadership, which is very often a super important thing. Our last one was, for you to know, Justin, our last one was a friend of mine who's a dancer and choreographer who's also worked in the Broadway scene, so that was like a very different thing than what you're doing. And the next one, little teaser, the next one is a mural artist and community artist.
We like to
It's
keep
really
our
cool.
topics fresh.
Yeah.
You said a mural and what?
And just community artist.
Oh, community.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
exciting.
But that being said, so we keep mentioning, for anybody that's watching this whole thing, either now or in repeat, we keep mentioning our audio chat. That's what that audio chat was. We had that last week.
Yeah.
But you mentioned in the audio chat that like one cool thing that's an element of this site that we're using is you said you can just ask somebody who's an attendee to just bounce into a one-on-one session with you, right? That's so cool.
Yeah.
That's something that doesn't exist anywhere
I'm
else.
very hyped, yeah.
Yeah.
And this sort of not involuntary, but this sort of consensual nature of that being okay by deciding that you want to join the conference, right? Like just like as happens in a physical conference, there's by virtue of stepping into conference space, which anybody could say that attends a conference feels like a certain sanctified ground. Like I enter into a space, it's new, and we've all decided to consider this ground new and different. And by doing that, I've provided some level of consent, and it's the consent to have a random chat with somebody. And so that's very fascinating. It's like this is mimicking that in it's what sounds like a very genuine way.
Yeah. It's definitely the most immersive possible. So I'm excited and hope everyone can join us.
So, okay, so we're doing our Let's Chat on Sunday,
Yes.
3 p.m.
Sunday,
EST,
3 EST.
noon PST. On Sunday, I keep saying that.
Yeah.
You can submit where our artwork, normally our Let's Talk is patron-only submissions, but this one's going to be open to the public. So if you want to submit, you can just email through the after show channel with a submission. Just a quick pitch on that is what we always do. It's a super fast paced. Each person gets 5 minutes of like talking about the art, being interested in just chatting about what we like, what we think could improve. So if you have something static, send us one thing. We'll look at it and talk about it for 5 minutes. If you have something temporal, send us something that's 1 minute so we can look at it for a minute. Everybody can look at it for a minute, and then we can talk about it. So if it's something that's very long, give us a timestamp of like, well, from 1 minute and 37 to 2 minutes and 37. Look at that. But if you want to submit that, go ahead and submit it through email on the after show.
Or by carrier pigeon. Both work.
That works too. Yeah. Or show up in our studio and present it.
Or just show, yeah. Bring coffee.
Wear a mask. But the conference at large, Justin, starts when exactly?
Yeah, so it kicks off at 10 a.m. Pacific time on Saturday, the 20th.
Okay.
And it'll last for 48 hours, so super exciting. It's
awesome.
A long conference.
Yes.
With over 20 speakers.
Wow.
About 15 learning labs. And right now over 100 attendees, so
amazing.
I'm excited to see how it goes. And you can register at envisionwithjustin.com/CONF for the conference.
Oh yeah.
And we've also put it in the description of this video, I do believe. And if we haven't, we're going to.
Yeah, it'll be there. So,
But that is
awesome.
so cool. We're so excited for this conference.
Thanks for involving us, and thank you for being part of this discussion. It's been fun, to say the least.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, and I'm excited to have you all at the conference. And,
same here.
To be able to go live and be active in the community.
And
appreciate it.
And thank you for being you. Just in general.
Yeah, the internet needs more of you.
Yes,
in general.
I knew of you a little bit before this month, but I am so grateful to have gotten the chance to experience you, and I look forward to continue getting the chance to do that. So.
Thank you. I appreciate the kind words.
Yeah, cool. All right. Well,
we're gonna end the stream.
Talk to you soon. Bye.
Thank you, friends.
Everyone.
Bye.
Peace.
Are we're off stream now?
We are off.